Hello my lovelies, I hope you're all well. Today we're going to be looking into the unsolved murder of Abigail Williams and Liberty German in Idaho, USA. You'll have to forgive me, I have a cold at the moment, so that's why I sound like this, but hopefully I can get through this video and everything will be okay, and fingers crossed I feel better soon. If you haven't seen any of my videos before, hi, my name is Michelle. I upload on a Tuesday and Thursday, and this channel is dedicated to true crime and unsolved mysteries and that kind of thing. So if that kind of thing interests you, then maybe subscribe, like, comment, let me know if you like this video, if you didn't like this video, and if you didn't like it, then if you could leave me some constructive criticism and let me know how I can improve things, then that would be very much appreciated. So the year is 2017, the date is February 13th. Abigail Williams, aged 13, and Liberty German, aged 14, are best friends. They have a very rare day off school, so they decide that they would like to go on a little hike. There is a bridge nearby called Monon High Bridge. This is in Idaho, in Carroll County. The girls have been there before. It's a bit out of the way, but it is frequented by locals. They like to walk across the bridge. It's really high, abandoned railway bridge, and people like to go there and just have a little bit of a wander. But as I say, it is out in the middle of the sticks, woodland surrounding it, and it's a very big drop if you fell off the bridge or fell through, because you know there are gaps in the slats and things. It's in a state of disrepair, so it's not for the faint heart. Libby's older sister Kelsey would drop the girls off at the bridge, and she said that she was feeling bad because Libby had always been asking her to take her places. The older sister who drives, the younger sister wants to go places, and Kelsey had been saying no to her a lot. So in this instance, she felt like she kind of had to, she was feeling that big sister guilt. So she took the girls, dropped them off, and then later on that afternoon, Libby's dad was going to be picking the girls up. So Kelsey dropped the girls off at approximately 1:35 p.m. and then a short while later, just after 2 p.m, Libby posted this picture of Abby walking along the bridge to her social media. This would turn out to be the last thing that either girl post online. At 3:15 p.m, Libby's father arrived at the designated pickup place, but the girls were not there. So he waited a little while, and then when the girls still didn't show up, he called Libby's grandmother just to say, the girls aren't here, have you heard from them? The grandmother hadn't heard, so they were ringing Libby's phone, sending her messages. I don't believe Abby had a phone with her, but they were trying to get in contact with Libby, and none of their phone calls were going through, none of their messages were being answered. So the family started searching around the area of the bridge to see if they could locate the girls. Maybe they just lost track of time, who knows? Teenage girls, they just lose track of time sometimes, or maybe they were purposefully being late, who knows? So the family were conducting their own search, but it got to about 5 p.m. and they hadn't been able to track the girls down. They were starting to get worried, so they reported the girls missing to the police. So the police then started their own search with dogs. They had bloodhounds and such with them, but they couldn't find anything, and the sheriff actually called off the search that night, something which he has later said that he regrets doing, but he had to think about the safety of the searchers. As I said, it was quite thick woodland, and it was very dark at night, and he was just concerned that the searchers might end up getting injured, so he called off the search that night. Unfortunately, it would appear that the police had a fairly blasé attitude to the girls being missing. They were not overly concerned. They they were of the assumption that the girls were just maybe a bit lost in the woods, not that anything untoward had happened to them. But even so, just like they're two young girls, I don't really believe that the search should have been called off when it was, but it was, and this is where we are now. Early the following morning, the search continued, and unfortunately, the girls' bodies were found down a hill on the north bank of Deer Creek. The local town of Delphi was a very, very close-knit community. You know, it was a small town, and it was the kind of place where people didn't lock their doors necessarily. Everyone knew everybody else, and just a very close-knit community. And the fact that these two girls had been murdered in such close proximity, and you know, that kind of area is only really frequented by locals, it had the whole town reeling, and they still haven't recovered from it. You know, now people are a lot more cautious, and they will lock their doors, and you know, it's that whole thing of you never really know your neighbours. Police have never released the cause of death, although they have said that it is definitely murder, it was not an accident. The girls did not fall from the bridge. We know that for sure. The police have said it was definitely murder. They also said that there are signatures which have been left by the killer. So they haven't said what these signatures are, but it's something that would stand out to the detectives and the investigators when they approached the scene. These so-called signatures are something unique to the killer or the crime. The fact that Libby had her phone would actually prove very, very useful, because she snapped this picture of the man walking on the bridge towards them. It is believed that this man is the killer. Obviously, this is still unsolved, but it is believed that this man is the killer. She also managed to get video and audio of the man. Now, they released the video clip of the man walking in the hopes that someone would recognise his clothing, perhaps his walking style, and be able to identify him. Or if he was innocent, he would come forward and try and prove himself innocent. They released a very small portion of the audio, and I will play that for you in just a second. It's believed that there is more audio that was recorded, but for some reason they only released this small piece, probably because there's some uncomfortable things in the audio. You know, you may hear the girls struggling and that. So that's probably why they haven't released it to the public, and I can completely understand that. The police have said that Libby was so brave and so clever for getting this footage and audio and the picture of the man on the bridge. It's helped them no end. So now I'm going to play you the footage of the man walking on the bridge with the audio of what he said to the girls. We don't know if the down the hill statement is an instruction for the girls to walk down the hill, whether he's saying go down the hill, because their bodies were obviously found down the hill, or maybe he's saying there's something down the hill that you should see. But either way, it was down the hill that the girls' lives were taken. As I said, the police have never released the cause of death. What they have done, however, in interviews is they have insinuated the sort of level of injury, using words like horrendous, can't unsee it, phrases and words like that. It gives you a sort of picture in your mind that this was not just a simple, you know, shooting in the head kind of murder. It was probably something quite nasty. And in a way, I understand them not releasing the cause of death, although it is very unusual. Now, you could think that maybe they're playing things tight to the vest, because they're hoping that when they get a confession that they can prove that only the killer would know the injuries and such, which is completely understandable. They did find fingerprints and DNA at the scene, and all we know about the scene is that the girls were found next to each other, but that there was fingerprints and DNA evidence found. My dog's playing in the background. I find it really crazy that a case with so much evidence is still unsolved. You would think that somebody would have recognised this man, either physically or his voice or something. And this is why some people theorise that it isn't somebody local, that maybe it was a chance meeting. And there's also theories that because he looks fairly rotund up top, some people have theorised that he's actually, his jacket, he's got like his toolkit under his jacket, which is making him appear bigger than he is. So some people would look at him and automatically think that it's an overweight older gentleman, but he could have stuff in his jacket that he was just hoping to come across somebody. Maybe he was a local person who knew the girls would be there. We just don't know. Hopefully one day we will. As I said, that area tends to only be frequented by local people who know about it and have probably been walking there since they were children. There's something very casual about the manner of his walk across the bridge as well. You know, hands in pockets. Like, he's not overly concerned that he might slip or anything. He has the walk of somebody who's walked that bridge many times before. It's just very, very difficult to think, is he local, or is this just a chance encounter with somebody who just came to the area on the off chance, or who knows? There have been a few suspects. I'm not going to name them or talk about the individual people. Suffice to say, they are pretty local, known sex offenders. But with the fact that they got DNA and fingerprints at the scene, these people, none of them have been charged. So we could take from that their DNA and fingerprints have matched that they found at the scene. And that's why it's so good that they got the DNA and fingerprint evidence, and also the video and audio, that when they do eventually find this guy, it's going to be irrefutable. But the main takeaway is that these two young girls lost their lives tragically, and it's still unsolved. And until they can find the persons by DNA or something, you know, hopefully, because I've heard that there have been other cases where like a relative of the killer has put their DNA into like a genealogy kit, like Ancestry or something like that, and then the police have been able to find the killer because a member of their family put their DNA into one of these kits, and it flagged up that this person is a relative of the DNA we found at this murder site. So that's really cool. And I suppose that's an argument for a sort of national DNA database. And I know that there are many arguments against a national DNA database in terms of privacy and all that stuff. But I suppose that would be a good thing about it, is that once everyone's DNA is on record, if there's a crime committed and there's DNA evidence, the person is going to immediately get flagged up. Unless, of course, they're an identical twin, and then it gets a bit tricky. So as of today, nobody has been charged with this crime. And we can only hope that Libby's incredibly brave actions of photographing this man and getting the video and audio of what they think is their killer will not be in vain. And I can't imagine how terrified those girls must have been. And for her to get that footage and audio, she must have been terrified that he was going to find that she was recording or whatever. Such a brave thing to do for such a young girl. They still have the tip lines open and everything, and I believe there's an email address. If I find it, I'll put it in the description. The families have lost their daughters, sisters, granddaughters, and nothing will ever bring them back. But hopefully one day they will get justice, and that will be a bit of closure for the family, who will be able to move on with their lives to a certain extent. Obviously, you're never going to get over that. But let's just hope that with the massively brave evidence that Libby was able to get, and with the DNA and fingerprint evidence, that we will get a conviction one day. Somebody has to know who this guy is. Somebody must know.